Choosing Home by ginnyrules27. Chapter 7. Mal and Uma made their way to the bikes, making it back almost at the same time as Harry, Jay and CJ. If the girls were surprised to see the blonde, neither one showed it. "Hey, CJ," Mal said as she tossed the to-go bag to Jay. "Hey, Mal," CJ said with a small smile, fiddling with the sleeve of her jacket as she glanced over her shoulder, back in the direction of the Lost Revenge. Harry patted her shoulder, as if knowing what she was thinking. "You'll see the ship soon, if you want," he muttered to her. CJ nodded. That hadn't been all she was thinking about seeing, though. "God, I hope Rye's going to be all right," she thought with a small sigh, "though I'm sure I'll see him soon enough." The announcement for VK Day said the election was going to be once a month. Knowing Henry, he'll probably insist on Ryan going across the bridge in the next group, with the Angels being on the warpath. I wouldn't be surprised if Henry slowly made it so we all wound up in Auradon. Like he likes to say, territory can be reclaimed. Lives can't. Jay caught the bag and grinned as he looked inside, catching CJ's attention. "Mal, is this what I think it is?" Dad thought it had been too long since his taste testers were in action. Mal nodded with a grin on her face to match Jay's. "They might be a little burnt. Sorry about that. I distracted Dad while he was cooking them." "Doesn't matter, they're still Lord Hades' cooking, which is probably the best thing ever created." Harry nodded as he pulled out his bike and then looked over at CJ. "You get on first, CJ." The last thing he wanted was CJ riding behind him and falling off due to an errant wave. Sure, she could swim, but that was beside the point. "Okay," CJ shrugged, and got on, holding her bag close to her. Almost an airbag, though a small smile graced her lips. As Harry got on behind her, holding her close as he could, while still keeping a grip on the handlebars. "Let's head out," Mal said. "Jay, you still got the remote?" Jay nodded and pulled it out of his pocket, tossing it up and down in the palm of his hand. "You got the Ember?" Harry asked. "Sure did," Mal said, patting one of the numerous pockets on her pants with her hand as she straddled her bike. "But let's go! The last thing I want to do is worry about if one of the casters escaped because we kept the barrier open too long dawdling. Or worse, an angel slipping out of the barrier and giving Audrey and Freddie aid." Harry nodded and the VKs quickly sped off on their bikes. Even the sudden brightness of the sun couldn't dampen CJ's smile at finally being free from the aisle, even if she had to clench her eyes shut from the pain of the sun. A sudden shadow caused CJ to squint slightly, and she couldn't help but gasp that escaped her lips. Everything was so green now. "Welcome to Auradon, Siege," Harry whispered. "Siege?" CJ asked, looking up at him. It was a little easier to look up at him than look forward because his torso provided some shade from the brightness. Harry shrugged. "I need a new nickname for you, don't I? Can't just call you Runt anymore." CJ nodded, with all the negative connotations the word brought. She was happy to retire the nickname. Still, Siege didn't work. Fun fact, my family sometimes call me Peach, so I can relate to this. "Not a fan?" Harry asked. "Not really," CJ nodded. "Roger that. I'll think of something else, or Harriet will help me think of something else," Harry told her as they made their way to Evie's castle. Parking the bikes, CJ couldn't help but smile as Estelle came running up to them. "Hey, Estelle! Hi, boy!" "He seems to have missed you too." Harry chuckled as all three heads seemed content to sniff every inch of CJ. "Harriet must have her hands full with the Smee twins," he thought. "Otherwise she'd have run out here the minute she heard CJ's voice." "Let's get inside," CJ muttered. "I'm not a big fan of standing out in the open like this." Mal nodded. "Let me check with Evie and Doug, see if anyone's got a hold of Ben. I'll reach out to him if they have, so that he can stop pacing a rut into his office floor."
"And if they haven't?"
"Then I'm taking his tawny jersey and Estelle can use it to track Ben down so I can ask him why he hasn't responded to anyone's communications," Mal said firmly, ignoring the fact that Ben's jersey shirt was probably 80 to 90% her scent by that point. She also ignored the nagging feeling that the reason why no one could get in contact with Ben was the fact that Ben was probably injured, or worse, captured. Nope, we are not going to think like that. It's one thing to be a cynic to Ben's hopefulness, but going down that rabbit hole is only going to cause you stress you don't need, she thought. A stressed out magic user is not the best thing to have. A stressed out godling is definitely not the best thing to have when we're dealing with Freddy. Estelle perked his head up upon hearing his name, and looked over at Mal, who gave him a small grin. Hey, boy, the pup's safe? Estelle yipped softly and wagged his tail as the group made their way inside the castle. Harry and CJ went to join the other kids, while Mal looked over at Evie. Well, he must be in a meeting, Evie told her. We've tried to get a hold of Ben with no luck. Mal sighed. Okay, I'm going to try and see if that doesn't work. Well, I hope Ben left something of his here because we'll need his scent. Pulling out her phone, Mal pressed the number 1 on her keypad. Normally she'd just dial Ben's number, but time was of the essence here. Plus, of course, he was number 1 on her speed dial. Uma could be reached via the mental link, and Jay already told her he didn't mind. Mal tapped her foot as she listened to the ringing on the other end of her phone. Please be alright, she thought, with Audrey and Freddy out there somewhere, and with them wanting to go after you too.
Mal?
Oh, thank gods! Ben!
Mal, what happened? You alright?
Ben asked, worry evident in his voice. Mal shook her head. I'm fine. The more important question is, are you alright?
I'm fine,
Ben said, but Mal could hear a bit of hesitation in his voice. Almost as if he wasn't sure if he was okay.
Audrey was here, with Freddy. Mal, she tried to curse me with her scepter. Thank God's Dad was here and could get me to dock in time. Who in the world does Freddy think he is anyway?
What happened? Mal asked. She could ignore Ben's uncharacteristically angry tone, considering the last time he saw Freddy, Ben was fighting him off with a sword before getting knocked unconscious. Where's Audrey now? Do you know?
If I knew, I'd tell you, Mal.
Ben sighed.
After she wasn't able to curse me, she took off with Freddy in tow.
Mal sighed and shook her head. Are you sure you're alright?
I'm fine, Mal. Just some bruised knuckles and maybe a bit of bruised pride at being told to duck by my father. If I hadn't, who knows what Audrey would have done to you?
Mal could hear Beast's voice in the background.
You had already ordered your mother out of the room. Because I wanted her and you to get to the safe castle. Ben, we are the parents. The parents protect the kids, not vice versa.
Hold on, let's rewind the conversation a bit. Mal said, Ben, did you punch someone?
Does Freddy count as someone?
Ben muttered. Ben, you punched Freddy! Mal exclaimed. Not that she particularly cared, but Ben wasn't exactly one for punch first, ask questions later. Actually, he was more ask questions first, try to find a peaceful way to resolve the conflict second, and punch never.
Mal, if you heard the type of comments he was making, you would have punched him too.
Ben, Freddy's not worth the energy, Mal told him. Besides, I grew up around him. I'm used to his comments. More than likely it's the same old, same old. You're better off ignoring him. He just wants to get a rise out of you.
Yeah, well, Freddy's had that punch coming with what he pulled at Cotillion,
Ben muttered. Mal couldn't help but give a sad smile at that, before shaking her head in order to stay focused on the task at hand. Listen, Ben, we have my dad's ember. It's the only thing more powerful than Maleficent's scepter, after all. And I hate to say this, but you should probably cancel with Jane.
Mal, I already called Jane to counsel the minute Audrey left. I hate to ruin her birthday like this, but I told her exactly what was going on. She said she could get her guests to safety. Ben told her, and Mal could feel a sense of peace wash over her. Gil would be all right. Carlos would be all right. Mal? Yeah? You okay? You kind of got quiet there. Ben said, his voice shifting from slight anger towards Freddy to its usual gentle tone.
I'm fine, just got lost in thought there for a second, Mal told him. So, can we come over to plan?
Yeah, sure. I always love seeing you. Besides, this'll be your castle soon, in a few years.
Mal smiled at the reminder and glanced down at her ring. The ring Ben had so lovingly given her. Great, we'll be there soon. Hey, I just thought of something. Can you call Mum in for the meeting? I know I could reach out with a mental link, but I think this is more of a official channels worthy, and we'll need her.
I'll call her as soon as we finish up here, Ben promised. But why not reach out for help from the other gods?
Because the only thing I trust them with is keeping Hattie safe.
Still mad at Zeus for the whole Natalie thing?
Of course.
I don't blame you. You know, after I found out what she was doing to you, I almost removed him from my council.
Mal smiled as she said that. Oh, really? Why didn't you?
Well, I thought it was a good idea if I asked you first, and you were understandably upset at the time. And two, I didn't want to risk the kingdom's relationship with Olympus.
We can talk more about that after we solve the whole Audrey-Freddie issue, Mal told him.
Oh, right. Ben sighed. One thing at a time. I'll see you soon?
Probably in a minute or two, Mal promised. Love you.
I love you too.
Mal disconnected the call and then looked back over at Evie. You mind keeping an eye on the kids while we run up to Ben's? Of course not, Evie shook her head. Evie, you're sure? The last thing I want you to think is that you're being sidelined right now. Mal, you and Doom are the fighters. With Freddie out there, we need the fighters on the front lines. You've told me enough that I can keep the kids safe. Besides, Harriet will be with me. Doug chuckled. Oh, right. And Doug will be with me too. Evie nodded, kissing Doug on the cheek. Mal shook her head in amusement. She wasn't exactly sure when Evie and Doug had truly become a thing, but she found it didn't matter. Evie was happy. They were all happy in Auradon, and Audrey and Freddie were threatening the ability for other kids to be just as happy. Well, they won't be successful, Mal thought as she made her way back to the group. Not if Uma and I have anything to say about it. Oh, and the boys, of course. Come on, she said as she caught Uma's eye.
Where are we going?
Ben's.
You were able to contact him? Uma asked. How is he?
He seems fine, Mal said with a sigh. But let's not waste any time. Come on. They had a king to go and see, and a plan to get underway.
Right, Uma nodded, then turned to Jay and Harry. Come on, you two. Back to the bikes.
Mal shook her head. No bikes. Not this time. We're teleporting.
We're what now?
Harry asked. We're teleporting. Mal reiterated as CJ chuckled from the sidelines. Harry shook his head and looked at his sister.
You're staying here.
What? Harry!
Last time I checked, you're still under 15, Harry stated. You're staying here.
CJ rolled her eyes. We're on the ship, Harry. You can't. Actually, he can. Harriet said as she walked up. Thankfully, Celia's watching the others, so I can say this. You know Freddie is out there somewhere, CJ. Right now, I'd rather you be where I know you're safe, even if that means you don't get to take part in the fight. There'll be other fights. This is ridiculous, CJ exclaimed, glaring at her siblings. Pirate Code, Paragraph 6, Subsection 8, third bullet point, states that no able-bodied sword will be put aside in defense of life, ship, or territory. I think Freddie threatening Auradon counts as our territory now. Harry sighed and pulled CJ to the side, squatting down so that he was looking her in the eye.
Okay, Squirt. I know I've got years to build up an actual relationship, but believe me when I tell you this. I don't want you near Freddie.
I know, CJ muttered.
No, you don't,
Harry said, and CJ paused, looking at her brother. Harry sighed and ran a hand through his hair, as he debated about breaking one of the biggest rules the crew had.
CJ, do you remember when you were 13, and Freddie made that comment about you?
Yeah, he said he wanted to play with my pirate booty. CJ scoffed. I mean, I know we're pirates, but I think Jafar has the most booty out of all of us. You know, with his gift shop? Harry sighed once more. How could he do it? Break his sister's innocence?
Nope, can't do it.
He shook his head and walked off. Harry, what are you doing? Harriet asked, and walked over to her brother. CJ watched as her two older siblings had a furious, yet silent discussion, every so often glancing in her direction.
You should have told her at the time!
She was 13, Harry!
Well, she's probably going to follow us if we don't give her something to indicate how dangerous Freddy truly is.
She wouldn't go against orders. Will one of you tell me what's going on? CJ exclaimed, and her siblings looked over at her. Honestly, you're acting like Freddy wants to force me into a fling or something. Who told you about flings? Harriet said instantly. We practically live on a ship with Dustin, Jake, and Nick. Actually, Robert and Caspian too. Not to mention Jade taught me a thing or two about the basics. Harriet sighed and pinched the bridge of her nose. Remind me to kill Jade when all of this is over.
Aye, Cap'n.
Harry nodded. CJ rolled her eyes. I won't break if you tell me, you know. CJ, Mel said, and all three Hooks looked over at her. Trust us. You're going to be thankful in a couple of years that we waited to tell you. Innocence was rare on the Isle, after all, but it was abundant in Auradon. Besides, I know you don't want to stay here, but Harriet will need a stand-in first mate with Sammy on the Isle. Mal added with a slight smirk as CJ's eyes lit up. All thought of what Freddy's comment had been forgotten. That's right, Harriet nodded, playing along as she walked over to CJ, resting her hand on the small of her back. If you're going to be a captain one day, you're going to have to start learning right now. Oh, of course, CJ said with a small grin. Captain, huh? And of course Ryan would be our first mate. There were no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Harriet sighed in relief as his sisters turned to the corner.
Sorry about that, Captains.
I'm an older sister, Harry, Mal said. I get it.
Me too, Uma nodded. Jay shrugged. I'm neither a captain, or an older sibling, or a girl. But if it helps, I get it too, mate.
Actually, it does. Harry chuckled as he went to go stand by the other three. Hold on, Mal said as a cloud of purple smoke surrounded them all. When it finally faded from view, the four of them had vanished. End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one. I really love that. That's so nice. Like, they're being protective of her, but at the same time they're just like, we need to tell her. No, she's too young.
God, is that a sibling thing? Oh God.
I'm not going to go into my dynamics with my siblings, but God, is this ringing some bells. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified for whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, gals and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.